Before you do,
Sorry.
okay. So welcome everyone to the January board meeting for the OWASP Foundation. I am Sharif Mansour, the outgoing chair of the foundation. And in attendance is the OWASP staff, and from the board is Grant Ogners, Martin Jubin, uh, Bill Corey, Vandana, Glenn, and Avi. So the first order is actually point of information. Um, Andrew, do you want us to go through the regular schedule, or do you want to go through the officers' votes first at the beginning of the meeting?
I think honestly we need to just read out. I can read out the conflict of interest and antitrust and changes to the agenda. This is something that I learnt when I was doing Linux Foundation board meetings, and it affects us too. We do need a conflict of interest antitrust statement because you all work at different firms. Essentially, it says to avoid any perceived actual conflict of interest or antitrust concerns under US federal or state regulations, only the published agenda shall be discussed or voted upon or amended as below. Looking at Robert Rules of Order, you can do a 2/3 majority to change the agenda. I don't know if that includes tabling motions, but this is an area of our bylaws that possibly will need to be updated. Honestly, I think you need to get through the election of the chairs, and then the new chair can do the approval of minutes and things like that, and take the roll call. Or actually, I think you need to take the roll call because we can't really do the election of officers unless we know who's in the room.
I have already done that, Andrew.
Fantastic, good.
So yeah, we've done the roll call. It's a question. The only question I had is, did you want me to go to approval of minutes and so forth, and then the officers election, or would you like me to do the officers election and then the chair then takes over and then starts the meeting proper with the approval of minutes?
I think the latter is the best way because at the moment you don't have directors and officers insurance, and any action you may take then falls on you personally, and I don't want you to be in that position. I think we need to get the new chair and other officer positions elected.
Okay.
Just one statement on that, Andrew. Tom clarified yesterday, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, that the officer's insurance also covers for volunteers, so he would be covered.
Oh, fantastic.
It does.
Okay.
Okay, great. That's really good to know. But I still think the chair needs to be elected.
You're going in the right direction, Andrew. Sharif, if you can have the officers voted in, then your work here is done.
So everyone, it is my pleasure to oversee the board of directors officers election. And it's a bittersweet one for me because I'm the outgoing chair, and I'm very delighted to do this handover and see how well the foundation is doing. So we'll start with the chair. Can I hear who is running for chair amongst the board?
I want to run for chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll vote for the board will vote for Vandana as chair. Sorry, is there discussion with regards to Vandana?
I would like to have one question to Vandana.
Please.
It's Vandana is very busy, very visible in various organizations. So I just want to briefly hear from her on why she thinks she should run for the board and how she wants to split her time for OWASP.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that question, Martin. When it comes to OWASP, OWASP is one of the places which is very close to my heart. And I have been part of many other communities, many other forums, but I always made sure when it comes to OWASP, it is my priority. I am making sure that I spend the right amount of time which is needed for the organization to run. And I know when I will become a chair, it is even the more important to collaborate with many other organizations. And I've started to make sure to divide my time rightfully at OWASP and slow down in my other engagements, which is needed. And at the same time, I wanted to mention that there are so many things which I can do being a chair, and I would love to do it. And when I talk about my priority, as much as my family is important, as much as OWASP is important to me. And I have handled it, I have balanced it really well in the past 2 years, and I'll make sure that this goes on. And I am spending the right amount of time on all the activities needed, be it a new integration, be it a new initiative, be it connecting with someone, or thinking new strategy with the board, working with the whole board, not just alone, but with the board to come up with new ideas for OWASP, and working with the staff and ED, which is very, very important.
Thank you, Vandana. Are there any further questions from the board? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, Martin. And so we'll go for vote. So Martin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jubin?
Yes, and finally.
Glenn?
Yes.
Avi?
Yes.
And Bill, you voted already?
I have, mine was yes.
Okay. And Vandana?
Yes.
Right. Congratulations, Vandana. And next is for
Mine's a yes. Mine's a yes too, Sharif.
I was
oh,
gonna say we're missing someone.
I didn't count. Sorry, Grant. Sorry.
Wholeheartedly yes, Vandana. Welcome.
And now, Vandana, thank you and welcome as chair. You are now the chair of the meeting. And Sharif, thank you so much for your time as chair. We got so much done last year, and without your guidance and counsel, I don't think we would be in a good position as we are now because of that. If you want to hang around for the finance report, you'll see some of the efforts that all of the 21 board helped us with, but it is in no small part from your pushing us to go and get things done, even if we didn't have money.
I'm delighted to hear it. I will be hovering around. It is my 10th anniversary, so I hope you don't mind that it's going to be in the background, so I'll switch off the camera. But
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for everything.
Sharif, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Yes, totally. Thank you so much, Sharif, for all the contributions to all the efforts that you've done. I have personally learned a lot from you, and we've spent countless hours together. And I would say that there are so many strategies, so many ideas that you have that has helped OWASP grow to bigger heights. And I'm sure that you'll always be a supporter and be there for us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't worry, I won't be going anywhere. And as Andrew knows, we've been also in contact and supporting OWASP already as well. So it will just be during office hours. That's the main difference it's going to be.
Absolutely, not a problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Vandana, would you like me to share the agenda on screen for the rest of the votes?
Right, absolutely.
I'll get that up for you.
Andrew, do you think that we should go ahead now with vice chair and other roles?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is, electing officers is always the first thing you've got to get done. So the next one is the vice chair, and you are going to be sponsoring this. So effectively, the script is for the, and if you just read this out, for the 2022 vice chair, you can call it out exactly like Sharif did, and generally it's very similar. If there's multiple nominees, then you just do a show of hands until you get one, and then you vote just like we did. And I think the rest of this is going to be really straightforward.
Sure. Thank you so much.
I'll leave the script up there.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for voting for me. Now, when we talk about the new role that or the role for a vice chair, I would like to take up the nomination as a new chair. So who wants to volunteer to be part of the vice chair?
I'd like to.
Grant, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go once, twice. Okay. Over to you, Grant. Anyone has any questions for Grant?
I would like to ask Brent the same question. He has his own company in his PC. So what is his imprint and why he thinks that he wants the right person for this job?
Well, I would very much like to be the vice chair to Ladana's chair position this year. I think that we work really well together, and I think I can support her in her efforts this year. I also think it'll be less effort on my part required in the vice chair role than was required in the treasurer's role last year. So it will be less time, I think, used by the foundation for this. And I also honestly believe that the work that I do and the work that I do for the foundation work well together. So I don't think there'll ever be a conflict between those two.
Thank you.
Anyone has any other questions for Grant? I'll consider it as no. So I'll go once, twice. Okay. Now we will take the votes for Grant as you don't have any questions. So I'll start off with the people I see on my screen. Martin?
Yes.
Bill? Bill,
Sorry,
you're on
could you
mute.
get yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. The answer is yes.
Jubin?
Yes. Wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Avi?
Avi votes yes.
Huge yes from my side. And Grant?
Yes, as well.
Great. Congratulations, Grant, for becoming new vice chair for OWASP Global Board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next one's secretary.
Yeah. So the next position is secretary. Who wants to volunteer for the position, secretary position?
I would like to stand for secretary.
Sorry.
Avi?
Oh,
Avi said
Okay.
wants to stand for the secretary.
Okay, great. Anyone else who wants to volunteer for the secretary position? I'll go once, twice. The stage is yours, Avi. Anyone has any questions for Avi?
Yeah, Avi, I have a quick question. You're new to the board and welcome. Sorry we didn't get to meet towards the end of last year. But being new to the board, it certainly took me a while to get my feet under me. How do you feel like you can get your feet under you being on the OWASP board and working in this officer capacity?
Avi?
Sorry, Jubin, I missed the last part.
How do you feel that you can, being on the board, being new to the board, how do you think you can manage being new to the board itself and managing the officer capacity?
Well, first of all, I think secretary might be the easiest role for that. Tracking things like the rules and the bylaws and points of order. I'm very good at disambiguating nuance and interpretations thereof. As far as that goes, is getting my feet under the under me for the board. Well, I think everybody, no matter what role you're in, is going to have to go through that. Yeah, I mean, I expect I expect it won't be easy. As far as the secretary goes, I think that's someplace that I would fit really well. As far as interpretation goes, keeping track of things.
Awesome, thank you.
Do we have any questions, any more questions for Avi?
I have an observation. Bill and a couple of others here know the bylaws very, very well. So, Avi, I'm assuming the vote will go well. You are more than welcome to lean on us to get interpretations of the bylaws and policies. Don't just put it on your own. Don't always just think I have to be the one who makes this call. You might be responsible for it, but you can always consult.
It will be in place
Absolutely.
for after the
Thank you.
voting. If we actually voted before.
Sorry. Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you. Absolutely.
Anyone has any more questions for Avi? Okay. I'll start off with the votes as the people I see on the screen. Glenn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Grant,
Absolutely, yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and a huge yes from my side. Congratulations, Avi, for becoming the secretary for OWASP Global Board.
So,
Thank you.
Avi, one of the duties of the secretary is to prepare the minutes. So, I'll get you and Dawn to have a chat after this. Congratulations.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you. One point of note, I'm out of the office tonight. So if we can postpone that maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll let you and Dawn have a chat.
Okay. Now we will go ahead with the next role, that is treasurer role. Who wants to nominate themselves or who wants to be a volunteer as a treasurer for OWASP Global Board?
Yes, that would be me, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Anyone else who wants to be a volunteer for the same position? I'll go once, twice. Okay. Anyone has any questions for Glenn?
Hey, Glenn, same question I asked Avi. You're new to the OWASP board. How do you feel that you can adjust being new to the board and taking on this officer position?
Well, I think that's a good question. So I think I'm fairly new to this, of course, like all the new board members. But I must say I learned very quickly. I adapt very well to these circumstances. And, inside the OWASP community, I also have, good connections with people like Grant, who've been in this position before. So there's a lot to learn and to listen from the past board members. And yeah, it is just, investing a lot of time into it, get up to speed and serving the board as good as I can, right?
Thank you.
All right. Now, if anyone has any questions. Okay, I'll start with the votes as the people I see on the screen. Jubin?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Grant?
Absolutely, yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Avi?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
And a huge yes from my side as well. Congratulations, Glenn, for becoming the treasurer for OWASP Global Board. And anything you need, we all are here to support you, to help you out. And I'm sure we all are going to learn from each other. And when it comes to learning finances, Grant is there. He's been dealing it for a very long time, like the whole year. He's taking care of, he knows a lot of tips and tricks he can share. Andrew has been a treasurer. I have been a treasurer. And Tom Tappers is again a very amazing person to help you out.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm very looking forward to the collaboration and also a bit of the knowledge sharing. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. very much so.
Congrats to all.
I just want to do my yearly reminder on this one. You are more than welcome to work with the foundation through me. I would encourage that in the first instance. Sometimes the staff need to reach out to individual board members. Please respond to them in a timely fashion. That'd be really awesome. And lastly, now that you're all directors, and particularly the office holders, we really do need you to use your OWASP.org emails. And that's pretty much the only time this year I'll remind you of those things. But thank you. And I think we've got a tremendous board this year, and I'm hoping we get a lot done.
And just one other thing out there, Andrew, on the side, if anyone who didn't send me their bio can send it as soon as possible so we can update the whole board page. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so at this point, Vandana, it's in your hands, the approval of minutes. Let's just pull that up. Can you do the approval of minutes, please?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So from the previous meeting, I would like to take an approval, and I'll go as I see people on the screen. Andrew, do you think I should sponsor it first?
Yes.
And I'll
Yes.
second it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll go ahead with the vote now. As I see people on my screen, Glenn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jubin,
Abstain.
Avi,
Yes.
and a yes from my side as well. Andrew, over to you. We can go ahead and get started with the
Okay.
agenda.
Okie dokie. There is written executive
That's-
reports.
That's the December one, Andrew.
Oh, always. Anyway, we have slides. I'm assuming that you actually have read the executive report. What I want to do is just go through a more visual narrative. Let me just move this out of the road. Okay, can people see that? Is it a slideshow now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Again, we have had a tremendous year. We're up to 5,556. Again, nearly 100 new members last month, which is amazing. We had a 37.33% year-on-year growth rate. Our stretch goal for this year is 7,000, which is actually around 42%. So we do have a way to go, but we are not going to let progress stop us here. We really need to keep on doing membership drives. We really do need to start thinking about our pricing. We haven't had a price raise for the OWASP membership for some time, and maybe we could do a membership drive around here is today's pricing and here is the pricing going forward. So at some time this year, the board gets to set the fees. I would like to have a discussion about fees because I think we've had the same $50 fees since 2008. And in 2022 money, that's $110. So I just really need us to think about how we could actually improve our position whilst not hurting our mission or membership numbers. Finance, we are still very good. I am currently working to update GuideStar. It's a difficult system to edit, to put it mildly. Charity Navigator, we are close to being perfect there. I will continue to keep these maintained because this is a great way for us to maintain good relations with donors who respect these. And with that, I'm actually, before I hand over to Tom, because these are actually figures that relate to the draft budget, which is the first item of actual business, and there are some budget slides as well. And it probably makes sense for Tom to go through the numbers. We are in the process of finalizing our business requirements for the association management software. I want to really make sure that we have documented everything that we need to do. We are going to be validating some of those with the board and our suppliers such as Virtual, and also our key stakeholders, our members and sponsors. I don't want to get stuck into having a system that doesn't support our business. I don't want to have a system that's so inflexible that we need to change our business to meet it, which is what the Fontiva experience. And I don't want to change very often, so it's really important for me to get it right. Additionally, I'm looking at this as being a cost saving and customer service improvement. So hopefully, when we go through and have a look at our cash assets and you can see it's going up and up and up, I need to remove some of the overhead out of G&A. And to do that whilst also improving our customer experience, plus also allowing us to scale so staff can actually do their jobs rather than things that the system should be doing today. So we have such a tremendous opportunity cost because of our current system. So I'm intending to have the new AMS in place, selected and in place by April 1. And with that, I will hand over to Tom at this point because he's got a narrative. I think some of the things that we've got here, he can explain better than I can.
Hello, everybody. So yeah, Andrew, thank you very much for that. A couple of things based on what you were talking about. So as far as membership goes, I think you're right. I think you should take a look at the pricing. The one thing we all need to keep in mind is the membership value proposition. So as we're doing that, we should take a look at what the membership benefits are. With regards to the AMS, absolutely, Andrew, I did talk to the person yesterday, so we can set up a demo of your membership in the next week or so. So you can get a look at that one. That's a fairly common AMS within the nonprofit world. So with regards to the finances, I hope everybody had a chance to look at the narrative that I sent. I tried to be as descriptive as possible, but looking at, you know, are you going to bring that up, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm bringing it up.
Thank you. So this narrative is for the full year. As you can see, our revenue, we were about $110,000 ahead of budget. It would have been more, except we budgeted for AppSec Australia Day that didn't happen through us. So the events were way above. The membership for the individual membership was much higher than we had budgeted. The corporate membership, while we took in more than enough cash to get to the budget, because we have to accrue and earn that income on an accrual basis, it was a little short, but I'll explain that in a little bit more detail as we go through. So the last piece is the donations were almost double what we budgeted. So again, our revenue in a down pandemic year exceeded our budget, which is a testament to not only Kelly, but the staff, because every event we ran actually brought in more income than we paid out in expenses. With that, I'll stop on the revenue side for a second and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, not hearing any. On the expense side, it was another good year. We were about $229,000 under budget on expenses. Half of that relates to the PPP loan that was forgiven this year. So we got to keep the $112,000 and reduce our payroll expenses. You know, project spending was under. Hopefully that will change for next year so that we're working on, you know, the budget, the projects are moving. As you can see, event spending was way under budget. Again, in the 8 years I've been your CFO, this is the first time that event expenses have been under what we budgeted, which is fantastic. Outreach was a little under. Chapters were way under, but that's more or less due to travel restrictions. You know, we've talked about G&A, it was over budget due to legal. We also, because we had such a great year, we were able to write down the entire inventory balance which was 36,000. So now, what little bit we have, when it sells, it'll be complete income to us. We were also able to, so that we can, when we dissolve the European entity and move it to the Netherlands, it won't have an amount that's owed to the US. We were able to write that off, as well as increasing our bad debt on the off chance that in 2022 and beyond, we have any items that have to be written off. We now have 25% of the December AR balance reserved for. Again, all very good things that are setting us up for a good year in 2022. With that, I'll take any questions on expenses. Not hearing anything. Our cash balance was just under $1.5 million, $88,000 more than November, and about $369,000 more than we were a year ago. Now, the reason for that, when you look at our profit versus the increase in cash, they don't exactly tie out. And the reason for that is because we have taken in a fair amount of money that's sitting in deferreds for events that haven't happened yet, offset by the small prepayments we've made for those events. So while we've taken in the cash, and you can see that in our bank balance going up, we haven't recognized it as revenue yet because the events haven't happened. I'll stop right there and see if anybody has any questions with that, because that was the one thing that I really did want to explain, which is the difference between our income, our accrued income, and our cash balance. Okay. We can go to the slides now if you want, Andrew.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
Many of the things that you've just talked about are here. And
exactly. Yep.
Here is the budget that we planned last year. Green is what we actually achieved. And of course, at the end of the year, we were able to recognize a lot of the things that had been outstanding in deferred revenue. Do you want to just go through those real briefly? Because obviously this net income is quite significant in December.
Sure. So when I show you the budget, it's going to be on an annual basis, but in order for me to track on a monthly, I take the previous year's activity and then match it up to the annual, and then we break it out by month. So a lot of timing issues come into play here, as you can see how it kind of went up and down during the year. But again, with the San Francisco, the virtual AppSec in November, the 20th anniversary, LastCon made a profit. We did much better than what our budget was, up to and including, covering what we had budgeted for AppSec Australia that ended up not happening. So as you can see, our total reserves are, they went from 12 months to 14.9. You can see where the cash went up. So, the industry average is 6 months. So we're in a very good position. Now, we're a little different than a lot of not-for-profits because we do quite a lot of events. So normally when I have a client that, exceeds 12 months, I start recommending they invest back into the organization. But the fact that we're going to have, when we hopefully get back to in-person events, towards the end of this year, like San Francisco, which is planned in the budget to be a in-person event, we'll have to make prepayments for that, which luckily we have the cash to be able to do that and not really affect anything we're doing operationally or even taking a loan. We still have the EIDL application in. I haven't looked at it, Andrew, for a couple of weeks, so I'm not sure where it is in the process, but it's not as urgent as it was, say, 6 months ago because of the cash position we're currently in.
Yep. Also, we cancelled AppSec Dublin.
Right, exactly. So we don't have to worry about, but eventually we will have to worry about prepayments, which you know, a lot of my clients have one big annual event every year. So, you know, they're not constantly putting out prepayments and then recouping once the event actually happens, which we do. So keeping a fairly good cash position has benefited OWASP, at least for the 8 years I've been working with you all.
Yeah. So this is a new report that I put in this month on AR. We do need to pay attention to AR because when it starts to creep up, this is money we're owed and it's sort of an asset, but it's not really with us right now. So Dawn did a tremendous job pulling in nearly $200,000 worth of AR for various reasons. We would like to keep this nice and steady without being difficult for our the folks who owe us money. But I certainly think we need to be a lot more aggressive once we get above 30 days to keep this nice and tight. Because AR itself it's money, but we don't have it. And sometimes we provided a service.
And to give a little context to that, so when I look at accounts receivable, I look at how they're aged, which means current 30, 60, over 90. Our over 90 is about 41,000. 28 of it is for one sponsor that's in the process of paying. So, you know, where we were when we did the 2019 audit, we had to clean up a lot of things that were old and aged. We've been keeping a pretty good eye on it. You know, I meet with Kelly and with Dawn, give them a report every Monday. So there's a lot more focus on the AR right now, and we don't really have any old aged AR at this point, which is very
Fantastic.
good.
Yep. Okay. Oops, seen that one already. Okay, cash assets, we're doing very well. We were supposed to end with around $750,000 in the bank. We're nearly double that, so yay.
Yep.
We've already talked monthly net income. The reason why we're able to do this, by the way, is that I kept a very sharp eye on expenses, and I think it's still something we need to do today. We need to beat out any unnecessary expense. Recently, I worked with Dawn and asked Dawn to have a look at Expensify. Dawn closed it. That's a tiny amount of money, but you know what? That's a tiny amount of money, and you keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. You make yourself more efficient until you actually need something. So when we look at this budget, which is coming up, the reason why we can spend on program is that we are looking after the pennies. I'm not trying to do it in ways that, you know, cost us our mission, but in this time, if we want to do San Francisco, which is going to chew up like half of our available money, we need that to go off like a bonfire. We really need everyone to come. We need lots of sponsors and everything like that. The only way we can afford it is to be prudent during the next couple of months. So I think that comes to the end of those. Are there any questions on our monthly and I really do appreciate Tom getting an early indication to the board as to how 2021 went. We sometimes don't get that until March. So he worked over the weekend and I was able to get it out. So thank you, Tom, for getting that to us. Are there any questions around what you see in our day-to-day BAU accounting?
I'll give you one more update. So absolutely, Andrew, I was happy to do it because what this is going to allow is now that the board offices are set, I can file this week our annual report in Delaware. It's due on March 1st, but I'd rather get it done now. And then we don't have to worry about it. And then once February closes, so I can see what's come in January, I will be getting all of the financials to the CPA to hopefully get a draft in March that we can review and then get this filed by the May 15th first deadline. Be the first time ever, but that's my goal this year. So we don't have to take an extension. And then Andrew, you and I don't have to do the 990 hustle in November.
I'd also like to get the annual reports out on time so that essentially for fundraising. And with that, unless there's any questions, Vandana, I'm happy for you to start the motion to approve the 2022 budget. we can only start discussing it once the motion has been seconded and discussion can open.
Sure. If anyone has not seconded, I'll happy to second the motion as Glenn has been a sponsor. And anyone has any question for the approval of 2022 budget?
Before you go to the vote, can
Yep.
Tom just take you
That's
through what it is, and then you can ask questions. I'm sure that what it is, and Tom, if you need to share the screen to show detail in the Excel spreadsheet, I'm
Yep.
happy to give you co-host while we just go through these slides.
Sure. We can go through the slides, you know, after the visual representation of what I'll walk everybody through. So if I can get the screen.
Oh, okay. Let me just stop sharing. There we go.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
It's loading. Yeah, we can see it now.
Perfect. Is that big enough for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, great. And Excel has a tends to be small. So I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So again, this is on an accrual basis. What I explained to Andrew yesterday was the issue with trying to manage on a cash basis is all of the prepaids and the deferreds that we have. You know, if we had one event every year, I could probably do it on a modified basis. I am going to come up with a cash forecast for us, but the budget it really does need to stay on an accrual basis. And on top of that, that's how we report to the IRS as well. So with that, as you can see, our net income last year, we estimated it being a down year and was a $99,000 deficit. Grant and I and Andrew and Glenn, when we just had the meeting, were all of the same mind. We don't want to show a deficit for 2022, and based on how well things went in 2021, we're hoping that that will continue. So we're showing basically a break-even budget, meaning our revenues match our expenses. So when you look at the revenues, they're very consistent to this past year. I did put a line in here. Grant made this suggestion, and I think it was very good to put revenue and expenses for the EU at this point, as we're looking to dissolve that and reincorporate in the Netherlands. The membership is very similar to this year. Grants are composed of hopefully a grant from Accenture for 100,000 and then 6,000 from Google Summer of Code, which we consistently get. The projects are very similar to this year. Merchandise is not much. We're assuming about $1,000 a quarter. And then, Andrew and I are going to try and work on some of the trademark, getting the trademark up and running. Although, as Andrew and I spoke yesterday, it may very well get combined in corporate membership. So with that, we're showing, about 2.1 million in revenue. And the reason it's up a little bit from this year is inside of this conference income is a in-person event in San Francisco. Kelly and Lauren provided me with their budget for that. So that's a lot higher because it's obviously in person, and the event expenses go along with that, which I'll talk about in a minute. But at this point, that's what we're estimating for income for 2022. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, not hearing any.
Tom, I have something to ask.
Yeah.
I remember there were some questions around Dublin, like it was supposed to happen in person and now we are going virtual and we are changing the schedule. So have we taken into consideration of that?
Yes, we absolutely have. We picked up, sorry, Andrew, we've got 100,000 for registration and 200,000 for sponsorship, which is much, much less than what it would have been had we tried to do an in-person, because the expenses would have far exceeded that. So yes, we've taken it into account as a online event, Vandana. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Also, the €34,000 that we'd previously deposited, I don't think we coped with it. It's been previously spent in 2020, so I think that was taken care of. I don't believe, like, the money's gone, is what I'm trying to say. So this is an accurate representation of what we're actually trying to do this year.
Right. So it was about 18,000, Andrew, and that money has gone. It is factored into the event expenses because I have to show it as an expense. But again, it wasn't very much. That was that we were very lucky to get out of the agreement for only that small amount that we had prepaid.
And Tom, I think you said this, I think I missed it.
That's
The
okay.
conference income includes, no longer includes Dublin as income, correct?
It does. Well, it
Oh, it
doesn't
does.
include Dublin as a face-to-face. It includes an EU
Oh.
AppSec.
A virtual EU AppSec.
Virtual.
So did we adjust did we adjust what we assume the income will be based on it being a virtual?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you were just saying. Got it. Okay. Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. Okay. So any more questions on the revenue side? And unlike last year, we've had a few meetings with Kelly and Lauren, so they've seen all of this long before we got here.
They're aware of what's in the budget before they have to fulfill it.
Yes.
Thanks again, Kelly.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at the expenses, it might be better if I go through some of the actual line items. So these are all of the expenses for next year, including the career fair and the training that's there. The reason I have the developer summit is that's going to be converted to the AppSec Asia Pacific. Here you can see the large amount of expenses for the in-person in San Francisco. It matches the 265,000 in registration, we're assuming, and 400,000 in sponsorship. But again, those numbers were all provided by Kelly and Lauren. So they've been vetted. You can see LastCon. We have staff time that's associated with the events. So the total event expenses are about 883 for 2022. For projects, again, this is the grant that we would have to fulfill if we get it from Accenture. So the net income would be $10,000, which would be our 10% admin that we would take out of the $100,000 grant. Project expenses, we're assuming that hopefully they're going to spend at least $5,000 a month to work on projects. This year, it wasn't that much. I believe it was like 20,000 or so. We put we split up our marketing to have 18,000 here, 18,000 in outreach. Again, there's staff salaries that are part of it. So the total for projects is about 352. For outreach, again, we've got credit card fees for all the memberships that are paid through credit cards. Again, here's the other half of the marketing that we're planning and staff salaries. So the outreach is 108. The chapters and member programs, this is where we've put in 30,000 for, as Andrew mentioned, the association management system. From what I typically see, that's enough to do a transition and get a platform. This year, the chapters spent in 2021 about $8,000. So as things start to wake up, hopefully, we put 60,000 in here for them to spend. We've got the staff time, and then this is the meetup platform that hopefully we'll be cleaning up and keep it to this number for 2022. So a total of 197. Women in AppSec, diversity, education and training, those are both just the staff time. We've got for G&A, We've got some travel in here for a board face-to-face, some staff travel. The insurances are about 8,000, so the rest of it would be legal. Staff time for G&A as well as fundraising. This is for our 990. We will have to do an audit in 2023 for 2022. So 2021, it will just be the creation of the 990. This is virtual. This is the AppSec. The expenses, not only for the CPA, but also for the dissolution and the creation of the new Netherlands entity. In the past, I've tried to combine, and I have to convert to euros. And so what we've decided to do is, there's really no activity in the European entity, hasn't been for the last 6 or 8 months. So when it does start up again, I'm going to show 2 separate sets of books, because we have that in QuickBooks, and it's much easier to do that than it is to try and run a combined report and then manually do all the conversion from euros to the US. As Andrew was fond of saying, it will alleviate staff time. This is our banking fees. Other G&A and software are platforms and different things that we have, like Copper and a variety of other things that we use, the CRM, Asana, Cloudflare. The portal and the web are things like Google, Form Assembly, Media Temple, different things that the staff uses. I don't have anything in here for replacement tech, and we do not have to take any bad debt in 2020, or I'm praying we don't, with what we have in reserve at this point. So that leaves us as expenses of about 2,154,000, and leaves us with a $268 net income, or basically break even for the year. Now, as we said, we estimated a $100,000 loss for last year and did much better than that. So our hope and our goal is to increase this positive number when we are sitting here a year from now. So with that, that's the 2022 budget. I'll take any questions anybody has.
I have one question. It's about the sum of code, 6,000. You said it's a grant from sum of code. I thought that would be paid to the volunteer who does the work. So why is it on our income?
I'm not saying it can't be. Last year we took it in income. I don't believe we paid it out, but I could be wrong.
So, Martin, this is the thing that we need to do better at grants. And in grants, I'm assuming we're going to retain 10% of the grant income, and we're going to spend 90% of it. Now, we probably do need to go back and have a look at all of the different splits in all of our policies and make sure that they're no more than 20%, but I think 15% would be a good number all through. And that is something we can look at later, possibly in relation also to fee income. The reality is, we've also got a potential $10,000 grant coming from Google for another project which Avi may or may not be aware of. My concern is that we need to make sure that grants, if they're going to be put anywhere, there can be grants for projects, most likely, grants for chapters, grants for a specific purpose. Could be for a committee. For example, the essential one is for the education committee. So we do need to do this better. And I do want to show you, I will share my screen one more time, and we'll just go through these slides.
But to your point, Martin, I mean, if that's what's decided, that the volunteer that's running that program needs to be compensated, that can be done. If it's in the US, if it's more than $600, we'll have to get, a W-9 and they'll get a 1099 for it. But
yeah, but that's how normally I understand from Google sum of code is the students get paid to do some work. So I wondered why it's OWASP income money where we have to pay them. I thought it would go directly to students, by the way. So wonder what.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So, you know, again, if we did some stipends to them, to the students that are doing it, that's fine too.
Yeah, we need to get better at coding, and I think that's actually something, Tom, when we get around to updating the OSD, the funding side, I think we need to get a list of categories from QuickBooks and make that a drop-down list so we can get better coding as we actually do the expenses.
Sure, you can do that.
So I just want to go through this real quick. This is a income versus expenses, and you can see events makes money. G&A does not have any real income sources, so we do rely upon fundraising from other areas to fund G&A. Our goal is to reduce this number over time. Projects needs, like membership and events, needs to bring in money, and so what I'm doing is I want to get to a position where Harold can bring in sufficient funds through grants. Now the reality is that if we get 10%, he's going to have to bring in around $3.6 million in grants, which would be fantastic, but we also have to have $3.6 million worth of stuff to do so that we offset the cost of projects. I really do want to say that every area that we do should have income, and the expenses should be less than that income. And so, for example, fundraising, we need to get better at doing donations. We need to get better at doing some other things here. As per normal, the EU entity has lost money again. I don't know of a single year that it's made money, but because we transfer money backwards and forwards, it's just one of those things. Now, membership actually does have some costs, but because we don't actually categorize them correctly, it is one of those things. The corporate membership is what this is, because the individual's over here. We need to provide various discounts and other subsidies, such as trademark licenses. So there are costs here, but we're not coding them correctly, so that's why it's there. I'll just go to the next slide after this. You can see, for example, events is still the vast majority of our income, but compared to previous years where it was over 75%, this is a really good change. Events are fundraising. We cannot do without events. However, I do want to make sure that every single thing that we do as part of our mission brings in money. That's really important to me, because we do know that events, although they've been the backbone of the OWASP Foundation for many years, we need to diversify and grow. So I'm looking for organic growth of events. I am not looking for them to do less. I am looking for, yeah, Martin.
I'm very much not concur with your statement. I think we should not lose money, definitely, but we have to say that everything we do may not lose money. If there's costs, that will be there. So I think it's, I understand where you come from, why you're saying that you will not do anything that doesn't bring in money, but that's not how it works, right? So well, yes, we will have spent money, invest money, and stuff like that as well. So it's very black and white statement that I hope that we can put it more in context.
This is for business as usual stuff. We really do need to make sure that when we do something as a one-off, like Grant possibly will be bringing the DEF CON motion to February's board meeting, that is something that the board can make a decision about. There's no real income associated with that, but Grant's, as I understand it, is seeking sponsorship. What we're trying to do is stretch our money as quickly as possible, and we're leaving money on the table at the moment. So we will grow. I do want to get events down to around 50% of our total income. But this is our expenses, and you can see here, for example, projects, chapters, and outreach and marketing. All of those things have costs and not a lot of income. So events is essentially subsidizing those activities, but that is our mission. The stuff we spend money on is our mission. So Grant, go for it.
Just a quick point there. We've got grants as a separate section here, but surely the money being spent by a project against a grant should sit in the project's expenses. So the project's expenses here should have been graded by the $90,000, and the grants on the income should have sat in the income for projects at that point. because there was
Yeah.
project work being done.
We would need to set up grants in each of the major mission areas inside QuickBooks, and I'll work with Glenn and Tom to make sure we get the categorization right, because it's not just for projects. And yes, you are right,
Yeah.
they shouldn't stand alone, but we've been doing grants as an ad hoc process for now. We're trying to get a better process in place. So this is example of what we lose versus what brings in money. It's just an easiest way of saying we still have work to do to get our overheads down and bring some more money into projects. If we could do those two things, we will have a tremendous 2022. So with that, you've seen the budget. I'm very happy to have questions, and Tom is probably the best person to answer them.
I mean, there is some categorization that we can do within QuickBooks to try and make this a little easier now that we're starting to ramp up our fundraising and our grants. But this is not atypical when you look at a 501c3 in the US, especially one on the tech side.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't recommend every year trying to break even, because the few clients that I have a couple that are bordering having to dissolve because they tried to do that, and when the pandemic hit, they had no reserves to call on. OWASP is not in that case, and if we can get through 2022 with breaking even or doing better than that, I think we can get back when we start doing face-to-face events, hopefully in 2023, and the world normalizes, we can get back to, where we've done in the past, $3 to $4 million a year in revenue.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, we can do more. We have one of the requirements in the AMS is to help manage grants if it's got the capability of doing so. Overall, this budget is a conservative budget. We aim to blow it through the roof. Many of the things that we've gone for are our worst case scenarios for income and higher than normal expenses. For example, I don't believe the AMS will cost us $30,000, but it's there just in case. I honestly, we are not having a lot of spending at the moment, but I want to make sure that if things get back to normal soon, that we have reserves for projects and chapters to get back to normal. So there is money set aside for those things to do our mission. And if we don't spend it, that's good, but it's not as good as doing the mission. So we've got money set aside for mission, okay? So overall, what does the board think about this proposed budget?
I'll give you just a couple more things. So, now that my role at Virtual is changing a little bit, I'm not on the reporting team anymore. I'm still your CFO as well as one other client, but I'm working with other clients more now. I'm not supervising anybody. So I've been, I think I have 6 other tech clients. So I see a lot of things going on in the open source community. I'm starting to point some things out to Kelly for different sponsorships. I have another client that, had been around for a long time. They're dissolving. They've got $30,000 or $40,000 that they're going to have to buy their articles of incorporation, give to another 501c3. I put in the request to the person that's working on that dissolution to give that as a grant to OWASP. We'll see, but I made my recommendation. So, there's a lot of things that we can do now that, we've stabilized the foundation of, we don't have a Z forecast like we did in 2020. We got through a whole full year in 2021 and showed a $240,000 profit. So, if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but this budget is very conservative, but allows the staff some flexibility to run the organization and help fulfill your mission.
Okay. Now, if there's any material changes throughout the year, just like what happened with the Z forecast, we can always come back and redo it. But I think this is a nice conservative budget with a very small profit, and we'll try our absolute best to blow it out of the water.
Yeah, there are some very clear areas where we've been properly conservative. So I don't foresee us having to do that. I think we learned well from the Z budget that the Z forecast that this was the right approach to take.
Good. So, Vandana, did you want to ask for any final discussion and then lead a vote?
Sure. Any final questions anyone has around the budget? Or we can open up for the votes. Okay. So we can start with the votes. As I see people on the screen, I'll start with Grant,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
and a yes from my side. I don't see Abhi in
he's
the
coming.
meeting.
He's
Yeah,
coming back
okay.
in. Just give me one tick.
Yeah, sure. I think he got dropped.
Yep. Just explain to him what's happening.
So, Avi, here we are discussing the 2022 budget, where we discussed about where we will be spending, where we will be investing, and how we will be thriving. And currently, we are voting for the budget. Do you have any questions? Avi, you are on mute. Avi,
Avi,
can you hear us?
can you type if you can't hear it?
I think he got dropped off
I think we
again.
lost him again.
Yeah,
It passes without him. I mean, obviously technical issues.
yeah.
What would you like to do?
So I think we can actually, do we have any other motion? I think we have,
No. We've got one discussion item after this, and that's it.
right. So can we
We
come
haven't
back to it?
completed we haven't
Go
completed
ahead,
the vote
Sam.
yet.
Yeah, we haven't completed the vote yet. So a yes from my side, even though it's passed, I would say, like, it's just I feel that we can actually come back to this motion after our discussion, if everyone is okay with that. Andrew, any
Yeah.
inputs?
That's fine. I would probably suggest if he can't come back before the end of the meeting, that we just simply put him as absent for this vote, like no vote. And that's fine, we can do that. We've got 40 minutes, and I would like to introduce for our next motion, or not motion, but discussion point, is the marketing plan that Virtual's been working on. Jim, I'm going to make you a co-host. And let's, yeah. So, just as a background, Jim here has been working hard. He did the survey just before Christmas. We have never had a marketing plan at OWASP. We need one. We don't have a lot of money. We need to make sure that we're spending the money on the things that are important to our members, and in particular, do a better job of communicating with folks to get certain outcomes. To my mind, good marketing has a return on investment. Bad marketing that is scattershot everywhere, like you might want to do marketing for 9 things, but only one of those things makes you money. You've wasted a lot of time. So this is why we've actually engaged Virtual. And with that, I would like to pass over to Jim.
Great. Well, thank you, Andrew. You'll be glad to know this is an abridged version of what Andrew circulated beforehand that has a lot more information and data and so forth within the developing marketing plan. But I'll talk a bit about the process that we followed, and for what it's worth, I have time at the end allotted for us to talk, but But so if you have questions, let me try to get through this, and then we'll get to the back end, and we can talk about anything that might be of interest. If anybody wants to interrupt me, I'm not going to be able to do the slides and monitor the chat. So if you feel you need clarity or something like that, feel free to interrupt me. And which I think I just talked out of both sides of my mouth, but nonetheless. So we began the process back in the fall. We did one-on-one interviews with about a half dozen, 6 to 8 different staff members, and got their perspectives on marketing, on where there might be need, on aspirations of what they want OWASP to become, and so forth. And in the midst of that, we did a situational analysis of our own, just to kind of evaluate your marketing materials, you know, inventory of the website and so forth. And that led into a stakeholder survey, I'll call it, because it was of both members and non-members, of which Andrew just spoke. And also in that, we used that as an opportunity, as all of you likely saw, to do a strategic prioritization exercise, and the results of which are in your in the marketing plan. But also, I'll go through a few of the slides with some of the consensus items in a moment. And that, again, that was what we used to develop the marketing plan, as we're calling it, what I'm presenting today, and what was circulated prior to the board meeting. So let me start off talking about what some of the results from that board visioning or strategic planning exercise. So we asked you, and it included, we asked in the survey, are you a current, incoming, or former board member? And I think there were some around 30 people who answered the question yes in the affirmative, and then some portion thereof who answered the subsequent questions. But when you identified organizational priorities over the next 5 years, and this was anecdotally, but this is grouped based on the responses that you wanted to accomplish. Number one was to strengthen the OWASP brand. I couldn't agree with Andrew more that you want to have is to diversify your revenue streams and diversify your member value and the member experience and so forth. A lot of that is built around strengthening the OWASP brand, which involves establishing OWASP as a leader in development and security community, stronger marketing, more developer outreach, and then positioning OWASP as a thought leader in the space. Grow the membership. Sounds like there's been some great success in the recent past of doing that. If we put a little more fuel behind it and get a little more systematic about it, I think we could do even more for you. So you want to grow in size, grow in sphere of influence, engage a larger constituency. You can work on your projects and your other initiatives, and grow your events. Education, you label this key, which includes being up to speed and delivering programming associated with current trends and vulnerabilities, more tools, more standards, delivering more on AI and machine learning. And a couple of you brought up the idea: is it long term worthy of looking at the possibility of certification? You want to reinforce your community, activate knowledge networks, partnership projects, create resources for those entry level, and I like the way somebody put it, a gateway drug for new developers, and then strengthen your tie with your vendors and integrators who, going back to what was talked about with your budget, perhaps can help to diversify your revenue streams. And at the same time, you want to explore and innovate. So these are strategic priorities, not necessarily marketing. So ideally, you'd want your marketing plan to support the strategic priorities. And this was Andrew's idea, so I'll give him credit for it. But he asked, was there a way for us to effectively give you a $100 bill, each of you, and say, if you had this $100, how would you go about spending it on? And we said use these categories, but here's where you decided that you would spend $100. At the top, it was educational program, project development, OWASP, typo there, OWASP awareness among developers, new resources for developers, and I won't go through it verbatim, but this is where you decided that you would spend your money. Now, maybe not good coming out of the budget discussion, but you actually managed to spend $118 on average rather than $100. But that said, this was all about just using the $100 as a way to figure out where your priorities lie. So with that, let me then go into the interviews that we did with the staff and the situational analysis. So again, I said 6 to 8 interviews. It was 5. I think there were 6, and I wasn't part of one of them. Growth seen as important, but that it hasn't been a priority in the past. Members tend to be more pragmatic about problems OWASP can solve, staff more aspirational about what OWASP can be. General consensus amongst everybody that I spoke with is that much more can be accomplished via marketing and communications, and it's great that you're investing specific dollars in your marketing or in your budget to support marketing. I of course would be an advocate for that number being larger, but nonetheless, I think there's clearly a powerful and fascinating story for OWASP to tell, and we're eager to help you tell it. We talked about audiences, and this is reinforced in some of the market research, the survey we did, but clearly at the top was developers who fell into different categories, AppSec leadership, which includes the C-suite and CISOs and so forth, universities, and then software architects. And that's basically in a hierarchy based on what we heard. I won't go through each of these, especially because it was in the materials that you already received, but really what we like to do when we're doing this situational analysis that I mentioned is really look at, what are the assets that organization has that we can make use of with our marketing and communications. And you certainly, again, when I talk about the story that OWASP tells, when you talk about being vendor neutral, when you fact that anytime you have a meeting, 350 people come, that you have an engaged community, that there's a lot to tell that we could do in a more dynamic fashion. And then you have a pretty strong following on social media, and then you have a prospect list for us to start with. So if you have 5,000 or so members, when you have a prospect list of 46,000, we got something to work with. So the priorities that emerged from the conversation, and again reinforced by the board exercise, was one, to grow. The potential universe is somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200,000 members, and you have 5,000. You have a good portion of that 100 to 200,000 in your database already. But what we want to do is we want to grow your database. We want to help you grow your membership. As we do, we want to help to connect the community better, find a different and more diverse pool of people, more developers, connect with companies to understand their perspectives and their needs, some of which we did with the survey, I think, at least with the individuals. And again, tell the OWASP story better. It was brought up that maybe there needs to be a new mission statement, marketing copy that pops, build more value into membership, a common tale that we are always talking about with our clients. But leverage connected stakeholders to facilitate word of mouth referrals. And again, people, even among staff, they thought about, do we need to start thinking about laying the groundwork for over time being able to introduce certification? Not gonna bore you with all the details on the survey methodology, but just to tell you, we went out to a list of about 10,000 people and got a 12.3% response, which included a nice number of members and non-members. So to the point where I think that you can consider the results of the survey statistically significant. Most of what I'm going to show you now is, and what's in the materials you received is looking at the responses from the non-members. Generally speaking, and maybe this isn't a surprise because these are people who reside within your database already, but the familiarity that your prospects have with OWASP is pretty good. Extremely familiar, 12%, very familiar, 32%, which combines for almost half saying that. And you have only a very small percentage who asked what is OWASP, 1%. But again, they're in your database. But what you should try to do over time is to take that awareness level and maybe use this as a benchmark and see if you can't move the needle and push the people who are in the somewhat familiar category over to very familiar and on up. So, but then again, I keep saying, there's good assets that we have at our disposal, so we're not starting at ground zero with this. Here, I think, is a very key question, which is, why are you not an OWASP member? And these I just put circles around these three because the cost of dues is at the top. In my view, your dues are very modest, and we'll get into that a little bit more. was something we heard from staff in our interviews, is that people can get most or all of what they get from being a member without being a member. So that clearly came through when we queried your prospects. I haven't been invited, and that was I think that's important. And although they no doubt have, I think there's room, if 24% of people saying that they weren't invited, for you to engage in a more sustained, more frequent membership recruitment activities, especially what you've done in the past have yielded success. But those three things suggest to me that there is wiggle room for us to put some muscle behind some of your membership marketing and bring in more members, which will help to lift dues, help to build deeper engagement, and then support your thought leadership activities and otherwise. We asked, what, if anything, would convince you? Oh, let me go back 1 second. The one thing that I found interesting here was that right at the top, we said, are you an OWASP member? And the answers were yes, no. And there were just too many of your members who hit, no, I'm not a member. And then we asked, why are you not an OWASP member? In the other category, there was a decent member who said, I am a member. And I would have thought the survey was messed up, but we continually went back and forth. So, but whatever the problem was, some of your members checked no on that first box. We asked, what, if anything, would convince you to join OWASP? And people, there are lots of responses. So the answer is not nothing for the most part. There certainly is a portion of your prospect database who just wants things to be free. But nonetheless, to me, the thing that really stood out was that need to articulate value. And what they want to hear is that by me joining, when I join, that I'm going to be able to make an impact and a difference for the organization. And that is just great content, great messaging to bake into your membership recruitment. And I just single out this single verbatim response because I think we should, it's almost like the Bill Clinton, the economy is stupid for those in the US that drove the campaign in 1992. But I think this is one that really resonated with me, at least. Is that one person said, I pay my dues with a reason for why it is important. I donate to Wikipedia because Jimmy Wales reminds me and says it's important. Note that my company matches donations to Wikipedia, but not membership fees. But nonetheless, this person really wants to understand that why it's important, and we need to continually remind people in different ways. Pricing elasticity is notoriously a difficult thing to measure in market research otherwise, but we nonetheless did a sliding scale within the survey. It was a slider that you could pick where it was the appropriate part, and we got a whole lot of people to answer it. But we factored out the people that said 0, right? So if they're not willing to, we don't want to have that be part of your average. And we also had 85 people who said less than $10. So for what it's worth, we removed those outliers and arrived at a median of $41 and I'm sorry, an average of $41 and a median of $50. So your $50 right now is certainly right, as I mentioned earlier, right in the sweet spot. Not one person said more than $100 for what it's worth. I don't think there's only one who said 100, but like $50 is right there. And
Jim,
yep, go ahead.
What's the pool? What's the number of pool people that came up with that median of $50 if we remove the 85 and the 64?
Are you asking how many people answered 50 on the nose?
Right. How many results resulted in that median at 50?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it was hundreds. So it's I think I would want to say it's about 300 people, and I would be making a wild guess how many people said 50 on the nose, but it was at least a dozen or more.
Yeah, I'm just asking what resulted in that median being 50, but so hundreds is
yeah.
I think that got my answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
The size of the pool
and to be
good.
clear, I pulled out the outliers of anybody who said $10 or less. So the median began with those that were $11 or more, and the top was 100.
Yeah,
So
that's basically my question. When you pulled out the outliers, how many were left? And I think hundreds.
Yeah, it was hundreds. I mean, that was one of the benefit of this surveys that we did get such a nice response that we still had a large pool of data points.
So on that note, does our members' participation in these surveys signal anything? How does this compare to when you guys do these types of surveys for others?
Yeah, I think the response. I mean, again, the survey went out to 10,000 members and non-members. There were something like 700 and something members who responded. I can't give you the percentage. Wouldn't be hard to calculate. I don't have it to know, and I don't know that. But it was 741 responses from members and 461. Don't ask me why that number is in my head, of non-members. So I'd say strong response, especially because we didn't send out reminders. All I had to do was send it out once. And we also, as Andrew said, send it out right before Christmas. So my gut reaction on that is this is a particularly strong response.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not going to go through this, but in too much detail. However, one of the other things that we measured, and this will be of value to you, not just from a marketing perspective, but also from a subject matter perspective. Of just we asked it two different ways because the questions would have been too long. But we asked people about the relevance of different topics, and we gave them a list of about a dozen in each case, and then what they would be interested in. And it was just, there's no reason that we did it that way, except for that there were just so many. But on the screen is what people came back in and said that they either had strong relevance, or they felt were strongly relevant, or had particularly strong interest. And again, I think that you may want to bake this into your programming, but as well, these are topics that could be showcased in messaging and are items that if we were able to use the messaging, people are going to see member value and hopefully join. Hold on a second. We also then asked a series of demographic questions. We asked questions about where people consumed information and so forth. And again, this is the detail that's in the plan. But what websites, publications, and resources do you access? What developer communities do you access? And I'm just giving you the top level answers here. Social media platforms used for work, and those that said that at least weekly. LinkedIn is clearly extensively used, but I don't want, again, I'm not going to go through each of the items, but just to give you an idea of the personas or profiles that we created, how we arrived there. But again, tactics and messaging should cross these platforms to reach high concentrations of your target market. And likewise, as I said, we asked some demographic questions, which will allow us both to cross-tabulate the survey answers, but also to help to create an idea of, whom are we specifically going after by title, by years of experience, by the type of employer, and then geographically as well. Now, you may decide, yeah, we have a heavy concentration in North America. We really want to build up our bona fides in Middle East, South America, West Asia, and that could be a strategic priority that's pursued. But nonetheless, if you're looking for, if you're using your prospects in your database as a guide point, you already know, whom it is that you should go after in order to build your membership. Again, this is intel that we'll use to create profiles and target prospects on social platforms and elsewhere. And again, you made a modest investment in marketing for this year. And the plan is really built around that reality. And that said, if you were to go out and experience success and see a return on investment in your marketing, that's going to bring in more money than it costs. And that might be a reason why you want to increase that during the year. But this is pretty much a stab in the dark, a beginning process of if we were going to go after specific people, and targeting, if we were going to use social media, boosted posts, and that type of thing to go after people, these are some of the ideas of the people we would go after. A mid-career security analyst wants to make a difference, interested in attack vectors and vulnerabilities. A European software engineer wants to contribute more. Employer won't cover the cost of the dues. An East Asian engineering director works for a small company. And needs to see explicit value for paying what they already get for free, And what came up anecdotally, at least, is in some cases you need to consider that the cost of dues within a specific market is particularly high given currency exchange, given the way people are paid in different markets in the world. So long story that's even longer in the deck that I gave you, but the emerging marketing objectives to support the strategic priorities the board had identified in reaction to the staff interviews we did, stronger awareness and appreciation of OWASP among key audiences, wider and deeper engagement with OWASP by subject matter experts, tactical support of key programs and initiatives, particularly your educational program, membership growth in the right places, expand opportunities to exercise thought leadership and collaboration on solutions, which effectively is being an outcome if we are able to tell this OWASP story in a more dynamic and more systematic way, it naturally should lead to that, and then a wider geographic footprint. So the recommendations that we have, and I'll just hit them quickly, but they're described in more detail in the marketing plan that was distributed, was that we can mine and leverage existing content that you have and make use of that to tell the OWASP story to help to fuel marketing communications efforts. Again, look to tell the OWASP story in new ways. Showcase your members through a member spotlight series. There are ways that when you think about facilitating word of mouth, let's go right to your members, get anecdotes from them, do short interviews with them, and then publish that information on social media and elsewhere as a way to get people whom they're connected with and who their messaging might resonate with. Think about digital advertising and social graphics. Social graphics is something we can do on the cheap. Digital advertising requires a corresponding investment. That might be down the road, but nonetheless, if we're seeing significant progress and significant membership recruitment success, then we might consider putting a little bit more money and muscle behind it with some digital advertising. Again, each of these tactics is described in more detail in the marketing plan, and then also give you an idea of how the tactics can be built out and deployed. Leverage OWASP chapters. Is there a way to develop materials and let them distribute it? But I'm not saying you don't do this, but just kind of a blinding glimpse of the obvious is: are there ways, if people engage at the local level, let's see what we can do to fuel growth for the international organization, but through the local chapters. New collateral as necessary, and then never miss an opportunity to seize visibility. If you're doing speaking opportunities, if you have a new project coming out that's of particular interest, if there are I know you did it well last year with the 20th anniversary. Are there different moments throughout the year that are particularly worthy of attention that we can leverage on social media through PR and otherwise? So I know that was a fire hose in the face, and again, you have a longer version of this that Andrew distributed beforehand. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions, clarify anything that I said, and/or if there's anything you saw on the deck as you reviewed it, see if I can answer your questions.
Okay, so from these results, I think the first things first is we are a very open and transparent community. We have some folks who are, to put it mildly, extremely anti-transparency when it comes to personal details, so they want to have privacy foremost. We actually had quite a semi-heated discussion last week about the use of trackers and beacons. It's opt-out. I'm certain that people who really care about these things run blockers like I do. But effectively, is there a way for us to measure our marketing effectiveness without relying upon beacons, like discount codes, or where we share something that only certain people can access, so we can actually identify the sources of things? Have you actually had to deal with this problem before?
Well, absolutely. And the metrics can exist in simplistic or complex ways. You know, you can measure it by website traffic. You can measure it by number of followers on Twitter and LinkedIn and elsewhere. You can measure it on new memberships created and so forth. So, you know, I don't know for the investment that you're going to make in marketing that will have the sophistication to be able to do the things that people would be wary of anyway.
Yeah.
That said, you know, based on our conversations, based on what I read, I think there's a lot of room for you to do some fairly simple things that will lift visibility without needing to engage in the types of tactics that will make people uncomfortable.
Okay. So board, what I'll be doing over the next month, I've got a privacy review which I've been working on. That coincides with the new privacy policy that's going through review at the moment. Do look at the lens of marketing when reviewing the privacy policy. At the end of the day, we have good business reasons for wanting to know how to better spend our funds. I'm very much a person who encourages opt-in rather than opt-out. So I think our ethos is aligned. It's just we absolutely do need to cover off our ability to get results. And I do want to make sure that as we spend, as Jim's mentioned on me a few times, our total spend this year is $36,000. That doesn't really go very far. We spent nearly $2,200 on advertising on LinkedIn for one event last year. It worked. I think we got more people coming to the event, but we need to spend very carefully like that. And so what I'll do is I'll put together, based around this presentation, some ideas for like a marketing calendar and things like that. But we absolutely do need to have an execution plan here. It's not just a matter of getting a nice plan with some good data in it. We've got to do it. So I'd love to have your input. It is coming up on time. Is there any other questions for Jim? Okay.
Just on the one slide I saw, it was the board exercise. If I not have misread it, it says December 22. I think the date is wrong.
Oh, my apologies. Wow, I usually make mistakes the other way. Don't update for the new year, but I'll sorry about that.
Okay. I'll set up a little area on the OWASP website for marketing. And Jim, do you mind if we put this up in public? I mean, it's already a part of our board minutes, so it's sort of out there. Is this okay if we could actually leave it up so our members could see?
Your call. The one slide that where I talk about profiles and so forth, and that's just generally for us to think about, as you mentioned about LinkedIn, and, you know, where we might target and/or how we will target our messaging. I worry that some people could, with a couple of slides, people might take the wrong way, but you have a better gauge on that than I would.
I mean, realistically,
Which,
we could remove the stock photography if that's the issue.
is that the slide you're talking about, Jim? The one with the stock photography?
Well, it's not that. It's not. I'm still sharing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I brought you down the path to show you, you know, that ended up here, and showed you how I got there. And I might. It's your call completely, but I'm not worried about the stock photography. These are just grabbed images. But go ahead. You're done, Martin. You seem to have something.
Yeah, it's profiling. Yes, we have to understand who is it, but the pictures are not done. I think that's not inclusive. And yes, we're profiling. We don't want to have any pictures outputting some typocasting in any way. So this is not. If you do it as virtual, it's your problem. If you're publishers, it becomes our problem. So this slide is those pictures. Yes, we have to need understanding. What I missed, by the way, is Asia Pacific. There's nothing in the region apparently, or Australia.
I would think that would be covered. I mean, this is just based on where there were high concentrations of your prospects. But that said, earlier in the deck, or I'm not sure where it was, where I said that you may decide that you want to target people where you don't have high concentrations of, and that would be fine. But no, certainly Asia Pacific that wasn't the way we phrased it. We had, I was trying to match, I think, what you already had in your database, West Asia, East Asia versus Asia Pacific. I would assume East Asia basically means.
Yeah, SA is good, but I think the pictures in the profiling that we get.
Yeah. Okay. And you and I are basically saying the same thing. I just wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea. I wanted to use those images in this presentation just to show some, the need for diversity and so forth.
All white.
I tried not to. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Jim, thanks so very much for that.
You're welcome. And if any, you have my email, I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to circulate by email through Andrew, through Tom, or otherwise.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Vandana, do you want to wrap up the vote from the previous one?
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. So, Avi, I hope you're in the meeting and you can hear us.
Sorry, was that me?
But we all go off video for Avi to give some bandwidth back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, can he type his answer for you if he's on, Vandana?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. Don. So Avi, let me explain what we are talking about here. So the motion is to approve 2022 budget, which we were discussing before you dropped off, where we've shared some stats that where we would be investing, how AppSec EU or Dublin would be converted to EU. And all of these things are mentioned as part of the budget. So we were going way around. Do you have any question? You can type, Avi.
Thank you, Vandana. I actually heard almost all of it. I dropped off right before the vote, so no.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So everyone has voted, including myself. So Avi, we wanted to take your vote before we wrap up.
Is he typing or?
Yes, I vote yes on the budget, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, that's a pass. Thank you so
He
much.
said yes. I'm sorry. He said yes.
Apologies for the.
Yes. Yes, Don. He said yes.
Okay, I certainly do hope
Aye.
that your internet.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I said yes to the budget.
Yes. No worries.
Thanks, Avi.
So, Vandana, the last item on the agenda is letting everyone know when the next meeting is and calling for an adjournment.
Sure. Give me 1 second. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And our next meeting is on February 22nd. It should be there in your calendar. If not, you will be getting the invite soon. And we are going to adjourn the meeting, and I am sponsoring this motion. Who's going to second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thanks, Grant.
And that's it. You don't need a vote for that one.
Would have been Owen's job otherwise, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll try to beat him, but you're faster.
Thank you so much.
I knew it was coming. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, no worries.
Take care, everybody.
FYI,